So recently I've been taking some time to think a little bit more about what I actually want to get out of the rest of this year, trying to prioritize my language goals a little bit and think about how I can actually go about achieving them. So in this video, I want to talk a little bit about what my language goals are for the rest of this year and how I'm planning to spend my time. So there are technically 3 languages in my life right now, which are Spanish, Portuguese, and Russian. And so the first language that I'm going to talk about in this video is going to be Portuguese. So Portuguese is actually going to be my main focus, at least over the next few months, for a couple of reasons. The first is that I have some short-term motivation with Portuguese in that I've somehow managed to get myself invited onto a podcast in Portuguese. So obviously I want to try and be as prepared as possible as I can be for that. So at the moment I'm trying to do 2.5 hours per day of immersion, and I'm also trying to speak a little bit each day in the run up to doing that podcast. And the second reason is just that Portuguese is becoming more and more relevant in my life. I have friends from Brazil that I speak to in Portuguese. I have more students from Brazil and from Portugal speak Portuguese. I'm getting more interested in series, in movies, in music and things like that. And so it's just becoming more relevant for me. And even though I have been practicing my Portuguese, I do a language exchange each week, I haven't really spent a lot of time dedicated to focusing on it, especially in regards to the listening, so I don't feel like I've improved that much. So I would like to spend a bit more time just focused on it, trying to improve a little bit more, specifically focusing on Portuguese. And so I'm taking this opportunity of the podcast to prioritize it, spend a bit more time focusing on my Portuguese. So my plan is to spend at least 2 months intensively focusing on Portuguese. Now I obviously know that I'm not going to learn the whole language or, master the language in that time, but I think given that I have a basic level already and my knowledge of Spanish, I should be able to make a decent amount of progress within those 2 months, especially if I'm able to hit these 2.5 hours each day throughout that period. So my goal is to maintain this 2.5 hours per day, speak as much as possible during these 2 months, and then hopefully I'll have built up a little bit of momentum with studying Portuguese, with focusing on Portuguese a little bit, where that will be able to continue through the rest of the year. But how much so is probably going to depend a lot on what I decide to do in regard to my Spanish goals. So let's talk about Spanish. I don't think I'm ever going to be completely happy with my Spanish level, right? There's always going to be things that I can improve on, always going to be new things that I can learn, but I am happy with my Spanish insofar as I know that I can speak it well enough. I know that I can have a conversation in Spanish about things that are meaningful to me with a native speaker, and there aren't really many problems. And if I do come across something specific that I don't know, I can work around it without it being too much of a problem. My focusing on Portuguese is not to say that I'm not going to be spending any time with Spanish. Even if I wanted to, I don't think that's really an option for me right now. Spanish just makes up a big part of my life. I have YouTube channels that I watch every day. I've got an audiobook that I'm listening to that I really enjoy, other audiobooks queued up for the future. So Spanish makes up a part of my life, and so it's always going to be there. And so I'm still intending on immersing in Spanish and doing stuff related to Spanish during this time where I'm focusing on Portuguese. It's just that I'll be doing less Spanish relatively. But the reason that I mentioned about how long I spend specifically focusing on Portuguese depending largely on my decisions in relation to my goals with Spanish is because recently I've actually been thinking a bit more about whether I might want to take a language exam with Spanish, specifically about whether I might want to try and go for the C1 exam. I don't honestly like language exams all that much for a few reasons, but there's still a couple of reasons why I'm thinking about taking one nonetheless. The first is just that I obviously don't know what kind of things I might like to do or try in the future in regards to my career. I've been really enjoying teaching English, and I don't know, maybe I would enjoy teaching Spanish or being involved in helping people learn Spanish in some way. And obviously if I have an official certificate, an official demonstration of my level, then that's going to give me more options in terms of what kind of jobs I can do and things that I can do. Another factor is that it just gives me something specific to work towards. It gives me some specific goals, specific ways in which I can focus on trying to polish my Spanish a little bit, and it also will work as good motivation, right? If I know that I'm doing an exam on a set date, then I'm gonna want to work on my goals towards that date. The other part is pretty arbitrary, to be honest, but it is still a factor for me, and it's just that given that I've put a lot of time and a lot of effort and energy into learning Spanish, there is a part of me that does feel like it would be cool to have a sort of official certification, some sort of official recognition, so to speak, in terms of, yeah, yeah, you can speak Spanish to a decent enough level. So the main thing I would need to consider in regards to this would be the time frame. When I looked on the DELE website for the next available exams, there was one in November. So that would mean that I would spend the next 2 months focusing on Portuguese and then have 3 months where I could specifically be focusing on Spanish and exam preparation for the C1 exam. I know there's still a lot of things that I would need to clean up and polish about my Spanish to be able to pass that C1 exam. So I need to just get a bit of a gauge as to if that would be at all relevant, realistic, if I would be able to do that or if I'm just being completely ridiculous. So I'm going to make a decision about that over the next couple of weeks, irregardless of whether I do decide to take an exam or not. I'm still going to continue with Spanish. I'm nearly at my first main goal of 1,000 hours of active immersion. Once I've hit that, I'll be continuing on towards 1,600. That'll be my next main goal, and then from there we'll see. But I'm going to continue doing Spanish nonetheless. And so finally, that brings us to Russian. Russian is not dead. I haven't quit Russian, but it is on the back burners, at least for now. So my Russian was really the catalyst for my starting to think about this a lot more, to try and start to prioritize my goals and things like that a little bit more. Because as I started to naturally drift more towards Portuguese and towards Spanish, obviously, I started to realize that I just wasn't really spending a lot of time on Russian. And so I spent a bit of time thinking about whether I might want to quit. And I also spent some time playing around with some sort of like example weekly plans, ways that I could try and include all 3 languages on a daily basis so that I could practice a little bit each day, like Portuguese in the morning, Russian at lunchtime, Spanish in the evening, for example. And I know that I could do that from an organizational standpoint, but I just think that ultimately it's not worth it for me. I know that I would make a little bit of progress, but I won't make as much progress in any one of those languages as I would want to over any given time. So for me, it's going to be better to spend a bit of time focusing on my short-term goals, my medium-term goals, and keeping Russian on the back burners for now until I can spend more time on it and dedicate a little bit more time on it when I've reached some other goals with my other languages. So the only thing that I actually do in relation to Russian right now is just my Anki cards. I have an Anki deck of like 4,000 sentences with, you know, common words and phrases and things like that. So I learn 10 new words each day. So it's just keeping it there in my mind, because I do plan on picking up Russian again in the future and spending time on it again. So I don't want to lose everything that I learn, and the 5 or 10 minutes that it takes me to do those Anki cards on an evening is a very small investment. So for now, I'm just doing my Anki cards. I do plan on picking it back up again properly in the future, but I don't have a specific time frame as for when right now. As far as beyond the rest of this year, I think I'm probably going to want to spend some time dabbling and playing with a few languages. There's a few languages that I have interest in, but I don't necessarily have the internal motivation to learn it properly. You know, maybe I might just try and do little language challenges, 1 month, 2 month, whatever, here or there, and just see if I can get, you know, a basic level in some languages. But for now, no specific plans. Like I say, in this video, I just want to talk about how I'm planning to spend the rest of my time for this year, and so yeah, there it is. So I hope you guys have found that interesting to some degree. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Thank you guys for watching, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Hasta luego.